Hi, and welcome to this week's cluster study on 1 Samuel 14. Now, the overarching question of 1 Samuel has been, who is the true king, the king we need? And as we reach chapter 14 of 1 Samuel, let's recall some of the themes from the previous chapters. Samuel is the prophet for a time and the leader of Israel. But the people requested a king, and God graciously gives them that desire, even though they're rejecting him as their king. Saul is chosen as king, and despite a slow start, he makes some promising steps. And he even has victory over the Ammonites. But Saul becomes impatient, and that impatience leads to disobedience. And there's a judgment from God that Saul's dynasty wouldn't last, so another king is to be found. And at the end of chapter 13, they are under Philistine oppression. And the question is, who will help them? And up steps Jonathan, that's Saul's son, who with his armour bearer embark on a secret and daring raid, approaching a Philistine outpost set upon a cliff. And Saul says to his companion, words in chapter 14 and verse 6, "Come, let us go over to the outpost of those uncircumcised men. Perhaps the Lord will act on our behalf. Nothing can hinder the Lord from saving, whether by many or by few." And Jonathan here just shows amazing faith. He steps out in boldness. He says, perhaps, he puts himself in God's hands. And he knows that God's victory isn't determined by the number of people he has on his side. Jonathan lays a test before the Lord, and the Lord grants him victory. It's great to read, and I hope you enjoy the story. But what follows in verse 24, it is confusing and chaotic. And reading it, you'll wish for clarity. But it seems that a foolish command from Saul weakens his troops in battle, who then disobey God's law, leading to God's silence in judgment, we presume, and endangering Jonathan's life. And an army that ends up not following their king. It's not the wise rule the people would hope for. And the chapter ends, though on one hand with military success and a royal family, the last verse shows that the war with the Philistines kept on going. And it seems maybe the king's failure early in the chapter endure with an ongoing problem. If our hope is in human kings, we'll be let down. And what this book does is it makes us lift our eyes and our hopes higher, whilst having a bold faith and taking steps for God and his mission. Well, I hope that's whetted your appetite and you have a great study. There are some questions below.